Disclaimer. This video does not promote EDs, lollipops, or anything sus in that regard. Chii has to be one of the creepiest, most unhinged content creators I've come across in a long time. Whether you're a fan of hers or you've got absolutely no idea as to who Chii is, I think we can all agree that these kind of clips
I don't want to be a burden for anyone. I don't want to keep being a problem.
are beyond acoustic. Now, I already know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking to yourself, why does she look like she was responsible for the creation of the pyramids? Why does she look like an Elden Ring randomly generated character? Well, you see, Chii actually became big, and when I say big, I mean figuratively and definitely not physically, because, spoiler alert, she suffers from an ED, and actually promotes EDs, just like Clara Dow. But she became big popularity-wise on TikTok for overly editing her face. Because believe it or not, looking like a forbidden specimen from Era 51 is not realistically possible. Or so I thought. But this Chii girl is currently facing a lot of heat. In fact, as I'm recording this, Chii just uploaded a response video addressing all the allegations against her. And let me just say this. You know a situation is crazy when the amount of allegations she's addressing in her response video is longer than Nep's list.
My case is based on the intentional distortion of ordinary truths and the extreme magnification of horrible lies.
Now, what you're gonna notice really quickly about Chii is that she's the textbook definition of you've got a 2,000-word essay and you've got to complete it in one night.
Horrible lies, all to fuel an orchestrated mass of hate in such excess.
That's right. She uses all that eloquent grammar. She uses a bunch of words
In such excess.
just to say a bunch of nothing. Now, here's the funny thing. I've seen a lot of Chii defenders saying stuff like,
The way she speaks is actually normal. If you can't understand her, that just means you've got a low IQ. In fact, you'd actually speak like her if your IQ was high enough.
yo, I'ma keep it a buck. Ain't nobody normal speak like her. Let's not kid ourselves. You know what she reminds me of? She reminds me of that quiet kid at school with an oversized backpack that may or may not contain a Fortnite gun, who speaks to himself once in a while, who speaks in monologues.
I've fallen for your illusion. How disappointing. So, you're gonna longingly gaze at me.
That's what she reminds me of. Now, believe it or not, there's a reason as to why she speaks like an anime character. When I first came across her content, I thought that the reason as to why she speaks like an anime character who's monologuing is because she takes the short bus. But turns out that might not be the only reason why. In her own words, Chii says that the main reason as to why she most likely speaks like an anime character is because not only does she want to filter out low IQ people, but it's apparently also because she wants to isolate herself from the cruel, illiterate, inbred phenotype of Filipinos. Now, at first, you might be confused as to why she's mentioning the specific ethnicity Filipinos. Well, she's Filipino herself, and she hates her own kind. But of course, in Chii's own response video, she begs to differ.
Firstly, the words being purposefully dismissed here are the words phenotype of. And this is a key detail to point out, because the dismissal of them is what caused this statement to spiral out of control, all while it was never written to be derogatory. Phenotype very simply just refers to a trait that is observable, and phenotype of Filipinos refers only to the Filipinos themselves, with the observable trait of being cruel because they are uninformed. Therefore, brains the size of a cashew refers only to that subset of willfully ignorant, relentlessly inhumane people alone, not my entire racial and ethnic group.
Now, do not be easily swayed at the Master Yapper's yapping. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think pretty much everyone understood your usage of the word phenotype. But I'm gonna say what needs to be said. In no world whatsoever are you ever gonna convince me that putting negative traits next to an ethnicity or next to a race is not a clear indicator of hatred towards that specific race. When I put negative traits next to Asian people, like, oh, I don't hate all Asian people. I just hate the geeky, nerdy, dog-eating phenotype of Asian people. You see how it sounds like? But she's very good at yapping, though. She's very good at saying 50 words just to say something that's worth one word. It's like she's casting a spell. It's like she's opening a dictionary and saying like, oh, if I read 50 random words, surely I'm gonna brainwash people into believing me, into thinking that I am in the right. I think we can all agree that if she removed phenotype of Filipinos next to cruel, illiterate, and inbred, then no one would have betted an eye. But it's the whole fact that she associates these negative traits with an ethnicity, as if those negative traits are exclusive to Filipinos. That's the problem. Smash like if you agree.
If you took personal offense to this statement, I implore you to think of exactly why that is, and why you may have assumed that I am referring to you.
Ah, she played it. She played that card, didn't she? Now, in case you fell asleep because of her Yapperino Gigaflare spell, essentially she's saying, if you're a Filipino and you felt offended by my original Facebook post, well then maybe you should self-reflect as to why you felt offended. Perhaps Perhaps you're exactly the kind of inbred illiterate Filipino I was talking about in my Facebook post. You wanna know what she just said reminds me of? It reminds me of that one Twitter post that went viral this morning where someone thought they cooked by saying, if you see someone say men are creeps and you feel offended, then you're self-reporting. Now at first glance, you might be one of the many people who reacted to this tweet by telling themselves, wow, what a base tweet. This guy's onto something. Well, if you're one of those people, I beg you to reconsider your stance. As you guys know by now, I've always been a D1 hater of generalizing any negative traits on any group of people, whether it's generalizing negative traits on man, woman, or our race. That's right, if we replace man and creepy with a race and negative stereotypes, suddenly that statement is wrong. Suddenly that statement is horrible. If you see someone say, this race are violent, this race are cat eaters, and you feel offended by it, and that's a self-report, guys. Listen, I understand hating yourself when you literally look like Momo, but having hatred for your ethnicity is crazy. Now for the people who just got offended, like, oh, you're so mean, you just called her Momo. Mamans, first of all, you're not gonna tell me that this does not look uncanny as frick. I mean, dang, people are typing ETBilu in her comment section, and when I type ETBilu on Google, apparently it's a Portuguese alien meme. And secondly, as we've discussed earlier, she overly edits her face on purpose to look like a mutant, or whatever it is she's trying to look like. This is what she actually looks like. Clearly a night and day difference. And if we're gonna get offended over me like making fun of an overly edited clown face, then you might be brain dead. But Momo Chii seems to be embarrassed of being Filipino so much that she's doing everything to incorporate Japanese culture instead of her own. That's right, guys. Momo Chii is a weeb.
どうしようあ、全然わかんないです始めましょうはい
I gotta stop this for a second, my bad, boys. I just cringed so hard, I think my micro pee-pee just went inside my stomach, and my stomach just digested it. I'm gonna be completely honest. I don't know what the fuck we just watched, but one thing's for sure, she clearly went full cringe weeb mode. I do want to emphasize, there's nothing wrong with wanting to learn another language, or appreciating another culture. But what I do have a problem with is when you literally start to gatekeep a culture that's not even your own from other people. In another Facebook post of hers, she was caught making fun of other weebs who are trying to learn Japanese. This whole post was her looking down on them as if she's any better. This part in particular was crazy to me, where she says,
If you're going to speak Japanese, you should at least know how the sentences flow in speech, where the words stop and where the tones rise and fall. You don't want to be embarrassing yourself among native speakers.
my man. Or in her case, I should be saying, my alien. Don't get it twisted. Your Japanese was so trash that even native Japanese speakers were making fun of you on your TikTok where you were speaking alienese. So like I said, I've got no problem with her learning Japanese, but don't look down on other people like you're any better. Y'all can be weebs together and learn Japanese. But you see, Umichi is not your typical weeb. In other words, she's Chris Tyson's biggest fan. Kimchi has received criticism for lollipop baiting. And for those who are unaware of what lollipops are in this context, well, they are the drawings of 10-year-old anime characters that Chris Tyson got caught busting a peanut tube. But I want you guys to be the judge of it. When you look at clips like this, do you view someone who's wearing a Japanese high school uniform, combined with having the mannerism of a middle schooler, combined with showing interest in cosplaying a 16-year-old anime character who's into clapping her own brother's cheeks in the anime? Well, when you put all of these things together, do you consider maybe perhaps the possibility that she might be lollipop baiting? And that she is attracting weird weebs like Chris Tyson towards her content, whether she's aware of it or not? Make no mistake, there's nothing wrong when it's own to wanting to cosplay with a Japanese high school uniform. There are a lot of girls who do it. There's nothing wrong with acting silly like this on its own. Maybe you're of that perk. And there's nothing wrong with... Okay, there's absolutely a lot wrong with wanting to cosplay as a 16-year-old girl who gave her own brother the hack tour. But it's when you combine all of these three things together that makes this whole thing extremely weird, and it gives credence to the lollipop baiting allegation. Don't get it twisted, there are millions of anime characters she could have chosen, but instead she picks a 16-year-old who gives her own brother the hack tour? Some ain't adding up. But of course, to no one's surprise, in Kimchi's own response video, she denies all of it, and she says that there's nothing wrong with what she's doing.
Now let's break this statement down, because all four claims made in it are, once again, consecutively false. And there's one semantic element in particular that gives away its purely ill intent in full display. That element being, when you look hard enough. Or in other words, if you reach far enough into your line of sight to see what things are expected of you to see. That I am acting like a child to bait files.
Okay, let me translate her Japanese once more. Chii is bringing up the looking hard enough fallacy, where if you look hard enough with your biased mind, you're going to, start making assumptions that may or may not be the truth. But here's the thing, Kimchi. What do you mean look hard enough? I don't know about you guys, but I don't need to look hard enough to see that in this clip, she's clearly dressing up and acting like a middle schooler who just escaped from the sped classroom. Whether you're aware of it or not, you are lollipop baiting. You are attracting the weird Chris Tysons towards your content. And I don't think that's what you want. Now, I'll give credit where it's due. She has apologized for promoting ED on her Twitter and Facebook posts.
I do apologize for having contributed to the subset of ED Twitter that does promote Dinspo. I will never deny that truth. This absolutely was my account. I absolutely did post inspo threads.
I'm sure it's not gonna come as a shock when I say this, but most of our audience are either teenagers who are fascinated by her overly edited face, or 50-year-old lollipop lovers. I was initially gonna cook her a lot for promoting ED to our teenager audience, but because she has literally apologized and taken accountability, there's really no point. Here's hoping she meant that apology. But I wanna know what you guys think. Is she lollipop baiting, even if she might not be aware of it? Was it weird for her to put negative traits as phenotypes for her ethnicity? But my biggest question, personally, is why does her plushie have an aux cord attached to its pee-pee?